answered whether a fetus has a right to life. If you do answer it and you can show that the fetus doesn't have a right to life, then you can show that abortion is morally permissible even if it's not going to be miserable. Right? What's doing the work there is you're showing that the fetus has no right to life, or likewise that it has a right to life. You're on the other side. I don't think either side gets to make the assumption here. And the point is that the arguments don't work. It's not that abortion is not okay. So suppose somebody makes a miserable life argument, and I say, you're presupposing what you haven't shown, namely that fetuses don't have a right to life. If you could show that, you'd have shown that abortion is permissible, but you haven't shown that, and so your miserable life part of the argument just drops out, doesn't do any work. That doesn't leave us in the position of thinking that abortion is morally wrong, right? We don't know whether it's right or wrong because the people who think that a fetus is not a person haven't proven their point either. We're just stuck. And maybe we have to figure out what to do when we're stuck if we're never going to be able to figure out, or we're not able to figure out at this point whether a fetus has a right to life. Maybe we've got to do something special in a circumstance in which we can't tell. But certainly showing that an argument doesn't work doesn't mean that the conclusion of the argument is false. It could still be true, right? Bad arguments have true conclusions all the time. I saw another answer again.
So how do you respond to the...
I'll be able to fit through the door soon. Has anybody seen the view throw on me in my office? Yeah. You gotta come to my office and see mine. Yeah.
How do you respond to the veto Messless policy?
Good. So there are two versions of that, and each of them should be treated differently because each has a somewhat different though related answer. And it's worth noting, I think, at the beginning that the fact that people are being unsure what to say and say, therefore, my side wins, on both sides, in both directions, that's a problem, right? That's problematic. It should make us wonder. So let's do the play it safe one. People say, because we don't know whether a fetus is a person or not, we ought to play it safe and not have an abortion. The response to that is simple. There is no playing it safe. If abortion is morally permissible, and we deny women access to it or discourage them from having it by stigmatizing it and calling it morally wrong, when it turns out it's not morally wrong, we deny them access to an important health care option that makes an immense difference in their lives. Right? So here are women who would like to have an abortion and can't and get stuck with a child that they didn't want, right? And their life is made worse because they couldn't have an abortion when it turned out to be okay. That's not playing it safe. That's playing it on one side and not the other. But likewise, if abortion is morally impermissible and is killing babies, then we're not playing it safe by allowing it until we figure out whether they're babies or not. There is no playing it safe. That's what sucks about this issue. Got to figure out the answer, and it's really, really hard. But at least we could get more clear-headed about it, and that's what all I'm hoping for here. Anyway, there's no playing it safe. It's a problem.
In answering the playing it safe, would you call that an argument? What are we claiming?
I think so. People argue that, people reason that because it's hard to tell whether a fetus is a person or not, we ought to play it safe and not do abortion. Okay. That's a piece of reasoning. Just a bad piece of reasoning if I'm right.
Okay. Well, in answering that, would we, everything that you just listed there, like the reasoning as to why, on the other side, why that could be wrong, because you're denying someone health access, do you want us to go into detail about like why the alternative could, all right, hold on.
You'd get full credit if you said this, okay?
Okay.
Play it safe. There is no playing it safe. If abortion is morally permissible and we forbid or discourage it, very bad things will happen to women because they'll be denied an important health care option. That's all you have to say. You don't have to go into how important it is or why it's important to write a dissertation on, what's important about it. I mean, there's lots to say there about how it can screw people's lives up, and dissertations have been and should be written about that. So for this purpose, that's all you have to say. It's just, the point is that we're not playing it safe by picking your side of it. Mr. Anti-Abortion. We're playing it on your side, not playing it safe. And the same thing with it's so controversial that people should be allowed to decide for themselves. Sometimes positions are controversial, but nevertheless, it's wrong to do. Something is wrong to do. So slavery was controversial, but it was still wrong to own slaves, or to pretend to own slaves, whatever people were doing. To treat others as slaves. So that would be the way I'd answer that one about controversy. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. What else? You can ask me now, even if you're not. If you feel like you should remember, but you don't. If you're looking through and you see stuff that doesn't, if you're not sure what to say about it, you can even ask me, is there one in this sentence? Is there something I'm missing here? That's fine. Anything you want. I'm happy to tell you. I don't want it to be a secret. I want you to learn this stuff. Yeah?
We've also Martin Luther King.
Okay. I don't know if we've talked about that in class or not, but it's simple. Some people say that abortion is morally impermissible because you might end up aborting the next Martin Luther King or the next Jesus or something like that. And that would be terrible, right? This argument, there's a sort of debater's term here, which is it proves too, or phrase, which is proves too much. What do I mean by that? I mean that if that were right, it kind of leads to an absurdity. Because if the idea is that we have a moral obligation to produce the next Martin Luther King by having as many babies as possible, then we are wasting our time taking philosophy class when we should be home making as many babies as we can be. Right? But that's absurd. So it can't be that there's a moral obligation to have as many babies as possible in order to produce the next Martin Luther King. Now you may say, okay, so now I've just given the whole answer. If you say that, you get full credit for it. Okay, I'm going to just embellish a little bit so you understand this. But you don't even have to say this in your essay to get it right. Okay? And once you get full credit for this, there's no extra credit on it if you get this question. You just got it. And I'm going to count that as 4 points or whatever it is, But here's a little bit extra for you on that. You might think, well, wait a minute. We're not saying that you should have as many babies as possible, just that you shouldn't kill any that have already been made. But that, it seems to me, is subtly assuming that fetuses that have been conceived have a different moral status than the ones that haven't been conceived. The point is to make the next Martin Luther King. What does it matter whether they've been conceived or not? If you think that the conceived ones have some extra moral status, you're smuggling in a right to life assumption or something like that. The idea that they're somehow worth more than the ones that haven't been conceived. If the real point is we should make the next Martin Luther King as quickly as we can, then we should have as many babies as possible. You'd get half credit. You get full credit if you said the part I said, I'll say that and you got all the credit you need.
The first part.
Yep, the first part. Before the part that I said was extra. You'd get half credit if you said, yeah, but you might produce the next Hitler instead. That's true. That's not the major point here, but it's true, and it would get you half credit. If you said them both, you'd still get full credit.
Was that the
Proves too much. So, if it really were true that we shouldn't have abortions because we should make the next Martin Luther King, it might be killing the next Martin Luther King, then it would also be true that we should have as many babies as possible and we're wasting our time.
Yeah, that's what I'm
and so it proves more than it bargained for.
like an avalanche.
That's right. It proved more than it bargained for. That's exactly right. Yeah. Your argument proves too much. Lawyers say that all the time. It just means an absurdity follows from your argument.
It's just like so ridiculous.
And it is a kind of reductio ad absurdum argument. Yep. If you like arguing and you're not about to leave school in 2 months or something like that, you should consider going to the debate club. My son Isaac was on the debate team and he got to travel for free to Slovenia, England, Bosnia, separate trip, Turkey, Botswana, all over Canada, all over the US, California.
Isn't it like another kind of debate team in the world?
It's one of the top debate teams in the world. Sometimes they move up and down depending on, the rankings are always changing, but it's a very, very well-respected and successful debate team. It got to be a lot worse after my son left, obviously. But a lot of people going there can't speak in front of others at all. And they start practicing in that context. And they get to be the point where they're champions. It's really quite cool. You don't have to be somebody who's really good at it already to learn a lot from it. There's more than one format Isaac did. I mean, as a parent, I was just overjoyed that he did it because he started reading The Economist. Like he subscribed to The Economist and started reading it. How many undergrads read The Economist? Very few. Right? You just proved my point, Addie. Right? It takes an unusually intellectually engaged person to do that and debate pushed him into being unusually intellectually engaged and politically engaged because he had to be ready to talk about any issue that came up. And reading that helped him. So you proved my point right because 1 in 30 of you said yes.
2.
I didn't see the second one. Okay? Also, not surprising to me. But it surprised me when Isaac did it, that's for sure, because he wasn't one of you. He might have read a video game magazine. Yeah. Still on the first one. Yep.
Yeah, I think the day that I missed was the overpopulated society to
Okay. Okay, well we could do, ask me about either one of them. I'll do them both since you've mentioned them both.
Okay.
It's easier for me to do them one at a time.
Yeah.
Overpopulation is a hardship argument, and the idea is that because it's better for society, arguably, that we have fewer babies, abortion is morally permissible. But that proves too much too in a way, right? Because it would be better if it's better for society to have fewer babies, then we could kill some 6 months old babies, and then we would have less population, right? So what's going on here is that argument is assuming the person is assuming without argument that a fetus doesn't have a right to life. If you couldn't kill 6-month-olds in order to solve the overpopulation problem, that would be morally reprehensible. Make sense?
Yeah. Would it make more sense, like, for the consumer test sort of part of it? Wouldn't it make more sense to do like overpopulation states that society is better with babies, and then say like assuming argument or assuming that fetus doesn't have a right to life, and then talk about this killing 6-month-old?
That all sounds fine to me. Just make sure you have enough time to do everything you need to do.
Yeah, I just mean like for making it seem more like.
You just want to make it clear enough that somebody could pick it up and say, I see what's wrong with that.
Okay.
Somebody reasonably intelligent. I think there are more efficient ways to say it though, like this. Overpopulation assumes that fetus has no right to life, or assumes without argument, begs the question by assuming that a fetus has no right to life. Because you couldn't kill a 6-month, it wouldn't be morally permissible to kill a 6-month-old in order to solve the overpopulation problem. So what would make there, you could add there fewer people, but if you got to that point, you have already gotten the check mark next to it, you got full credit.
And then the other one is the
13-year-old? So there are 2 there,
yeah.
and people don't always notice that. The poor 13-year-old, there's more than one thing to say. You'd get half credit if you said that it's not going to ruin her life necessarily. Some people who are young and get pregnant against their will, wishing that they weren't pregnant, end up living fine lives. Happens to a lot of people. But that's only half credit. The real point is that this assumes without argument that a fetus has no right to life. Because you couldn't kill the 14-year-old, 1-year-old baby because it's ruining her life.